for Equal Opportunity, which is a Washington, D.C. think tank dedicated to the promotion of colorblind equal opportunity and racial harmony. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Roger Clegg.
Before we start, we're just going to lay some of the ground rules for the format of the debate. We're glad that we have such an exciting topic that many of you have chosen to participate. What we're going to start with is we're going to start with a 10-minute constructive speech by Mr. Clegg, followed by a 10-minute speech by Professor Church. Each participant will have 10 minutes to respond to the other, following which we're going to be taking questions and answers. We're going to be finished with the evening tonight by about 8:30 p.m. So if you have questions, if you have some that you'd like to get in early, you can feel free to text them if you'd like to 608-620-5669, 608-620-5669, and if we're possible, we may also be able to have some for both. But without further ado, we'll begin with tonight's debate.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate the invitation to talk with you all. Needless to say, this is a very emotional topic, and one that reasonable people can differ about. I don't expect, under any circumstances, to make a lot of on-the-spot converts in the course of a 20 or 30-minute talk. But what I do hope to do tonight is to leave you all with a framework to think about this issue. So that's what I'm going to be laying out for you. I think it makes sense to begin by defining what we mean by affirmative action. The term is ambiguous. It means different things to different people, and it has meant different things in the course of the time that it's been used. The term was first used a little over 50 years ago, actually, in the civil rights context, in an executive order that President Kennedy signed in 1961. And at that time, what affirmative action meant was taking positive steps, proactive measures. That's what it sounds like, affirmative action, to make sure that you are not engaging in racial discrimination. That definition of affirmative action is controversial then, but it's not controversial now. I don't oppose that kind of affirmative action. Very few people do. In fact, I think that it makes perfect sense to require positive steps to be taken to make sure that you are not engaging in racial discrimination. Another early definition of the term meant casting a wide net. If you had a company, for instance, or a college, that for years was not interested in hiring African Americans or in admitting African Americans, then naturally they would not bother to recruit in the inner city or from historically black colleges. If you were serious about wanting to hire the best qualified person or admit the best qualified individuals, you would change your recruiting policies so that you were including them in your recruitment pool. I don't have any kind of problem with that sort of affirmative action either. I'm a supporter of it. The only kind of affirmative action that is controversial today, that raises policy issues and also legal issues, is what Harvard professor Nathan Glaser called affirmative discrimination. That means that you are taking race or ethnicity into account in deciding whom to hire or whom to admit into a school or whom to grant a government contract to, something like that. That kind of affirmative action I oppose. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Now, in saying that that kind of affirmative action is discrimination, the debate is not in there. What we have to decide is whether the benefits from that kind of discrimination are heavier, outweigh the costs. But we have to consider both. We have to consider both the benefits, but I think too often in discussions like this, the whole focus is just on a back and forth about whether or not the benefits are there or not. Now, I'm going to lay out the benefits briefly, the purported benefits of affirmative action, racial preferences, but, and I don't think much of them. I'm going to do my best to persuade you all that there's not much to it. But, and this is my real point in saying that what I want to give you tonight is a framework. Even if you conclude that I'm wrong, that the benefits are something greater than zero, you can't end your analysis there if you're going to be intellectually honest. You have to proceed to the next step and ask about the costs. I mean, you can't do a cost-benefit analysis without considering both the costs and benefits. Okay? So that's the basic framework that I hope to leave you with. Well, let me just talk very briefly about what the purported benefits are, and then also quite briefly about what some of the costs are. The principal benefit, principal justification for affirmative action is the fact that America has a long, sad, tragic history of discrimination, particularly against African Americans, but also against other groups. And there is a visceral sense that many people have that we have to do something to make up for that. That we want to make things right. Now, the problem with that justification in the higher education context, which is what we're talking about tonight, is that, first of all, that legally it is, I'm sorry, can I see? First of all, that the, as a legal matter,